Good evening, everybody. So last Thursday, B'Shah Tov Mutzlachas, we had the bris of my first grandson, fifth grandchild, Leonora Ken Yerbu, and first grandson, also Ken Yerbu, Yosef David Burke. And, at the time, the recording that we made that we tried to live stream did not come out well, but they were valuable divrei Torah, and something good came out of it. It came out so badly that I finally had the hisairus, they have to get new equipment. So aside from preserving those divrei Torah right now, this will be a test run to see that the new equipment is working well, which we'll use lahagdul Torah lahadira. So what I said, at the bris of my grandson, who I was so privileged to, give the name. I was mechuber with Kriyas Hashem, Yosef David. So I put the emphasis of my address of how, Baruch Hashem, how kol Yosef asa Yafeh Be'ito, this bris is so well planned. B'ashgacha pratis, it was just, you could feel it was at the right time in so many ways, in so many levels. So first of all, it was in the week of Parshas Vayera, and the bris was Baruch Shem, or Zochen, it was Bismano on the 8th day, and the very first bris, that happened Bashmini on the 8th day of birth was the bris of Yitzchak. That is in that Parshas Vayera, the very pasuk that I said. Vayamol Avram Yitzchak bro ben Shmonasim Kasher Tzibo Solokim, right? Is in the parsha of that week that we read just 48 hours later. So a bris b'shmini comes out in the first parsha of the first bris b'shmini in history. Right? Now, the Rambam in Maamar Nevuchim, as I should preface that with the minhag Yisrael Kodesh is to give the shame of the child by the bris. That is, minhag Yisrael Kodesh. That's how we do it. And so at the bris we named him Yosef David. Right. So now, what's interesting about these two names, first and foremost, Yosef is the name of my mechutin, Mr. Franklin Burke's father, and David is the name of my father, Olav Hashem. So the baby is named after its two great-grandfathers that are no longer amongst the living. So that's special in its own right, but the Rambam in the Maamar Nevuchim gives two ta'amim for bris milah. So first time is that, indeed, by cutting off the orla, we are mitigating the potency of the drive, of the libido, that the Rambam, as a doctor, said that it's well known in medicine that the foreskin is very good for male potency. And we, by command of Hashem, we take away that shleimut gufanit, right, that bodily perfection, in favor of for shleimut midudatit, and the shleimus of midas, right, that by divine command we mitigate our ta'ava. A father stood up for a son, that the son should grow up to be well disciplined and not out of control, and by divine command we sacrifice the shleimus of the body for shleimus of character, make the ta'ava less, right? So the procreation will be controlled and be done properly, l'shem mitzvah, l'fi halacha, makes it easy to comply, with the ta'ava being less. That's the first reason. And the second reason is that he says the second reason, even though he gives it as a secondary reason, says in a certain way it might be bigger than the first, it's a badge. The bris milah in the Rachanimo, and in every Jew that had a bris milah, serves as a badge that he belongs to Kal HaMa'aminim. He belongs to the community of believers. All those, that go in the derech of Avraham Avinu. So before we bring it home to Yosef and David, right? I referenced that I have a book that I've yet to publish. It's been percolating in my head for decades already. And my Rebbe Moshe Shapiro had told me I should go to press, just never had the opportunity. Maybe you'll write back to me and push me to it. That I have a whole Hebrew in my head about explaining this. The Rambam is a man of systems, right? And that is very clear. And it's easy to see that there's a sense of system of how the Yad HaChazaka is arranged. Question is, what is the system of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, which is very different. There are a lot of deviations in how we arrange the order of the mitzvahs in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, as opposed to how we did it subsequently in the Yad HaChazaka. But the Rambam holds of his original order of Sefer HaMitzvahs. He doesn't change his mind about it, that it's also a legitimate systematic order, because in his Hakdama to the Yad HaChazaka, right, he first lists the mitzvahs in the order of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and then he says that in this book it's going to be listed differently. So he holds of that original order of the Sefer HaMitzvahs. All right, so it's been a mystery to many people. What is the system of the Sefer HaMitzvahs? I think I was zocher to crack the code. I think I was zocher to crack the code, and a simplistic way of expressing what I feel is the code for the Sefer HaMitzvahs, as opposed to the code of the Yad HaChazaka, is that it's Gabra versus Hefza. That the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs is looking at the Adam. And what is this chiyuv on the Adam? The Rambam in the Yad HaChazaka is looking at the mitzvah, the object of the mitzvah, the mitzvah from an objective point of view, not the person that's performing the mitzvah, but the mitzvah as an object. What we call in Gemara talk, Gavra and Hefza. Right? I'll give you one example before I get into Mila per se, a very easy example. The Rambam in the Mishnah Torah puts the halachos of Sfiras HaOmer in Hilchos Tmul Musafim together with the mitzvahs of Korban HaOmer. That's where it is. But in the Sefer HaMitzvah, he talks about all the Korbanos much earlier, including Korban HaOmer, and the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer is later with the mitzvahs of the Yomim Tovim, right after the mitzvahs of Leil HaSeder, right, the mitzvahs of Pesach. He gets into, and it's a mitzvah to count the Omer, right? Very far away from Korban Omer, which he listed earlier when he goes through the Korbanos. So we have to preface that the Rambam is one of these poskim that holds that Sfira Bizman Hazeh Doraisa. That Sfira, even in this day and age, is Minat Torah. It is not essentially linked to the Korban Omer. It is related to the Korban Omer. We count La Omer, but it's not essentially linked to the Korban Omer that you say is that since we don't have a Korban Omer in this day and age, therefore Sfira must only be Draban. There are many poskim that hold that way, including that's the way we paskin. The Shulchan Aruch, who generally tries to agree with the Rambam, but over here he felt mostly Shonim are against the Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch paskin Sfira Bizman Hazeh is the Rabbanan. Right? It is essentially linked to the Korban Omer. But the Rambam doesn't hold it. He holds Sfira Bizman Hazeh is Doraisa, which means by definition it's not essentially linked to the Korban Omer, even though that's the way you count. Hayom Yom Echad Lo Omer, you count from the Korban Omer, but it's not essentially linked to the Omer. It's Doraisa Bizman Hazeh, which means there's two aspects to Sfiras Omer. On the one hand, the way you count, the Hefza of counting, the object of counting is related to the Korban Omer, but it is obligatory on the person to count mitzad the calendar halachas that the mitzvahs aseh shazman grama, like matzah. Even a woman are chayvim matzah also, but that's because it's learned out that anyone who's prohibited in chametz is obligated in matzah. But matzah is a mitzvah shazman grama leil seder, which by the way Rambam holds women are obligated. Sipri tzes mitzrayim also as a function of their chiyuv in matzah, and we have another shear on that. But these are all mitzvahs seishas man groma. They come with the calendar, and Sfiras Omer, if it's the right Bizman, it means the chiyuv comes with the calendar. It's a calendar chiyuv. It's not a Korban Omer chiyuv. But you do count to the Omer. So now the Mishnah Torah looks at the object of the mitzvah. So you count the object of counting is based on the Korban Omer. So he puts Sfiras Omer with the korban omer, because you count to the korban, to when the korban would be brought, right? But in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he looks at the Gavra, and mitzad the Gavra, the Chiyuv on the Gavra is mitzad, Azman Grama. So comes the 16th of Nisan, he's obligated to start counting Omer, just like on the 15th, he's obligated to eat matzah that night, and the night before, that night also do all the halachos of Leil HaSeder. So with that point in mind, right, so now let's take a look at the Rambam's two different reasons. One is Gavra, that the father has an obligation to, just on his son, and if the father's doing it, the son is doing it himself, and the purpose is to weaken the ta'ava, right? To weaken the ta'ava, right? And that's Gavra, that's the object on the, speaking to the person, the rachanimo, right? His ta'ava should be less, right? But then we talk about that the Mila itself is a badge that, reminds you. It's a badge that reminds you that you belong to the believers. Good. So now it's very good. The Rambam in the Mishnah Torah put Hilchos Mila where in Sefer Ava together with tzitzis, tefillin, mezuzah, all these things that are badges that we belong to Hashem, that we're meshubet to Hashem, to remind us of Hashem. Mila is there also. But in Sefer HaMitzvahs, he puts it with the laws of family, after to get married, and after Shana Rishona, and after to have children is Lamul Saben. But the laws of family, because firstly, it's a family obligation. The father does it to the son. But if not, the son does it for himself, so he should procreate al-pi, that he also should, be a moral individual, be married, just, only hang out only with his lawfully wedded wife and have children with her, right? So it fits this, pattern. This is one of my examples that I bring, in my as of yet unpublished book, right, to explain the discrepancy of why Mila is in one place in the Mishnah Torah and a totally different place in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and it's very explained, based on these two different reasons in the Rambam, which fit this pattern of Gavra, Sefer HaMitzvahs versus Chefza, Yad Chazaka, and I have about 50 or 60 examples, maybe something like that, all the different deviations, right? By the way, also another nafkamina between these two tamim of the Rambam is whether it's the mitzvah is lamul or to be nimol. Is the mitzvah to cut the foreskin away, or is the mitzvah just to have, just be gemaut, right? Be without a foreskin, right? And that's really, the two different tamim of the Rambam. Lamul, the chiyuv is a father to cut away, to mitigate his desire, but then to have the badge, that's to be nimol, to have the badge, right? So really this famous Haggadah, lamul or limol, right, is really totally these two tamim of the Rambam, but ain't kam makom laharich. But I said that, these two great men, Yosef and David, also played out these two tamim of the Rambam, right, to weaken the ta'ava, right? That's Yosef. Yosef, withstood the test of Ashes Potiphar. And it is my understanding, I said that to Bris, that when Yosef reunites his brothers and he reveals himself, brother, Ki pia medaber alechem, see that my mouth is speaking to you, there's means two things. First of all, speaking in Lashon HaKodesh, but also Rashi says that, the soy that Bris HaLashon, Mechumen Keneged Bris HaMa'or, that, is also alluding to, they showed him that he's Nemo, showed him that he's Mahu, showed him that he is circumcised, which my understanding is not just that he showed him that he has no foreskin, because anyone could do that. I think he was able to exhibit to him in a spiritual way that his bris was not defiled. So the Yosef is the one who personified, that's your do it, mitzvahs that you sowed, right? The meat of Yosef is keneged bris, right? But mitzvah bris, this aspect of being mashpia, only al pi derech haTorah, because the tava to do it in any other way has been subdued. And that's what a tzaddik is. Yosef HaTzaddik, a tzaddik is Moshe B'Yitzro. The tzaddik is someone who controls his tava to only do things based on what the Torah wants from him. He lives by the law. He controls his tava and lives by the law, and that's Yosef Tzaddik. So Yosef, personifies the very first reason of the Rambam. Now, what's with David HaMelech? So David HaMelech, famous Gemara. He's in the merchatz, he's in the bathhouse, and he feels terrible. He's orum min mitzvahs. He has no mitzvahs, right? So Nizkar, he remembers the Milah, and he feels better. I have a Milah. So the Marach already says, wait a minute, you did the Milah when you were 8 days old. That's what you're consoling yourself with. Console yourself with the fact that, 10 minutes ago you were still wearing tefillin before you went into the bathhouse. Right? You take solace, if that's the right word, from the mitzvah Milah you did, unconsciously as an 8-year-old, 8-day-old, I meant to say 8-day-old. Right? That's how you take it? No, so from there, the Marach or brings right, you see the mitzvahs to be Nemo, right? Which is what we're talking about. He remembers the badge. I still have the badge. I'm not literally naked. I have the badge that I belong to Hashem. It's not, he's not talking about he's taking any type of chizuk from the fact that someone cut off his foreskin, many decades earlier. So I have the badge. I'm not really naked. I have the badge. And that's the side that, the midah of Malchus in the tzalki is the Atorah Sheba Bris. It's the badge per se. The Atorah, the crown, the Atorah Sheba Bris, right? So it comes out that Yosef and David play out the two reasons of Milah. Besod, Yesod, and Malchus, and the two go together. Yesod and Malchus, right? And I said that this is the Yosef ensures Jewish continuity. That we're never going to assimilate. We're not going to intermarry. There'll be Jewish continuity, but you have to keep your bearings, right? So it's Jewish continuity, and Jews stay separate and excel, like Yosef stayed separate, he didn't marry Ashes Potiphar, and he excelled. But you got to remember what it's all for. You got to have your badge to remember. It's not about being Jewish pride, as if Jewish pride is a value in its own right. It's not about Jewish pride. It's about Kol Ma'aseh Shem Shamayim. Remember that it's all for Hashem, to glorify Hashem, which is the midah of Malchus, Shem Shamayim, right? Which is David HaMelech. And this is the secret. That these two guys have to learn to get along. Mashiach ben Yosef has to give way to Mashiach ben David, like Yosef ultimately had to learn to, accept Yehuda mitzad, not Yehuda per se, but mitzad the Yehuda is the forebear of David HaMelech. Right? It's a big challenge that, Yosef has to, do all the work, right? But still have it all channeled towards David, towards Shem Shamayim, right? And, and that's a challenge that there is in Jewish destiny. There are Yosef people and there are David people, and they have to learn to get along, right? That the power to be a mashpia, right, has to still not, it's not for you. You have to always have that badge, which is the homing device, right? That's all has to be kol ma'asecha, which is sod yesod, kol ma'asecha you l'shem shamayim. That's the chibur of Yesod and Malchus. That's the chibur of Yosef and David, and it's both are merumas in Bris. Bris is the koach mashpia should be al bi derech haTorah, but the mashpia has to be focused at the nekuda called Shem Shamayim, at that badge, right? And I said, to bring it all home, so that's how the name is so apropos. But it's also apropos that's in general in Sefer Bereshis. Sefer Bereshis. Now, Sefer Bereshis, we know, right? Rashi says, the opening Rashi, for some Chazal, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, the Torah could start from Achar Zelachem. Why did it start from Bereshis? Hashem owns the world, right? So he could, just like he gave Eretz Yisrael initially to the Ummah Olam, because he could do it. He's God. He owns the world because he made it. So he also has the right to take it from them and give it to us. Okay. So I asked the following question. Right? What type of gift is that? Right? God has the right to gift Eretz Yisrael to us, but then he tells us to go conquer it. To go conquer it. Is that fair? Look, on that basis, I said I could gift anything to anybody. I could tell someone, look, I'm giving you the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll sign it over to you right now. You're going to have to conquer it from New York State, from New York City. You're going to have to take it from them. What type of gift that? You have to then go out and conquer it. So I said that, Kibush Haaretz is beside giving the whole world a bris milah, giving the whole world a bris milah. Right? They're just like bris milah is to get rid of the garbage, get rid of the aspect of the snake skin, the mashka chavia that we have in us. The orla is the mashka chavia as a result of hate on the Mauritian, represents what's wrong with us. It's why it makes the taiva so strong. Right? So it represents getting rid of what's wrong with us, the excess tava that we have in us because of het on the Mauritian. Right? So now in the big picture also, the world needs a bris milah to get rid of these nations, or push these nations off point center where they influence the world and pervert the values of the world. Eretz Yisrael is point center. Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Shivas Ha'amimim. It's called the land of the seven nations. Well, there were many more than that. There was the Keni, Kadmoni, and the Knizi. So that's at least 10. Right? And also you see in the days of Yoshua, there were 31 kings there. So the number 7 is a philosophical number. If Eretz Yisrael prior to the Jewish people is Eretz Shivas Amin, so what's Am Yisrael? The 8th. The 8th, right? How we're conquering Eretz Yisrael, we have to do it by conquest. It has to be conquest. It has to be, right? Because chasing out those 7 nations is like beside cutting off the orla, which is on the baby for 7 days. It's on the 7 days of the orla parallel to the 7 nations, which are the 7 philosophical midas that are in Eretz Yisrael. So, anshe midos, men of midos, the koach of the 7 midos that we call teva, that needs fixing. Eretz Yisrael is point center of that. These 7 nations pervert the 7 midas of teva. When Bnei Yisrael come in, we're the 8th, connected to Bris. When we come in, we have to conquer it to cut away those 7 nations that are beside the Orla. And when Am Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael, Teva is pierced, and that's when miracles happen. Miracles happen when Am Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael, and has a spillover effect of the whole world of revealing Hashem's divine majesty. Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael is to give the whole world a bris milah. That's what it is, right? To get rid of all the tumah and everything that hides, that foreskin that hides the hashgacha pratis and hides miracles, right? Get rid of it to reveal. Just like getting rid of the orla reveals the light of the neshama, getting rid of the shivas am from Eretz Yisrael reveals the light of the hashgacha in Eretz Yisrael and has a spillover effect to the rest of the world. That's why the whole world just wants to stop us from being in Eretz Yisrael. And with this, you understand why Chazal say, in a few places, we get Eretz Yisrael b'schus bris milah. So celebrations for Eretz Yisrael, and we get Eretz Yisrael b'schus bris milah, right? Right. So it all fits that the bris was during when we read Sefer Bereshis in general, which is for Eretz Yisrael. We get b'schus the bris milah. Right? Yeah. So that's one other point I wanted to make on this. Bris is almost a week ago. In the third, I know I added another point to this at the time. Oh yeah, now I remember. And that's why, by no coincidence, who's our big competitor for Eretz Yisrael? Who's our big competitor? Yishmael, who also has bris. Initially, he had a bris done by Avraham Avinu, but afterwards, it got worse in the sense that, as Ram writes, Malachim, Yishmael married Bnei Keturah. Bnei Keturah chayiv in bris milah. So it's not just that he had a bris, right? Because at the time when Hashem commanded him, right? But also he actually united with descendants of Avraham Avinu who also have a chiyuv milah. So he has an aspect of bris, and that gives him room to compete with us for Eretz Yisrael. And it has to be clarified that the real bris, there's brisi akim es Yitzchak, is not just my covenant that he's the child, but brisi literally referring to bris milah. The real and runs parallel. The real bris milah, just like the real bris for the children of Avraham, is by Yitzchak, right? So, yeah, I'm sorry, my screen. Yeah. Anyway, so it's all by Yitzchak Avinu, right? So these are all nice ideas that I shared, with the people, and we also should help, just like in this child. Hopefully, we'll have all the shlemus of the midas of Yosef and all the shlemus of the midas of David HaMelech, b'shlemus Yosef David. We're waiting for that also. that it's brought down in the Kesavim. Rav Kook writes about it, or Yaakov Moshe Chalap writes about it, that those who build Eretz Yisrael, they want to, build the infrastructure, and they want to be in the army, and they want, and it's Jewish pride, Jewish nationalism. That's Yosef, right? But the people that are there, that I know we have to just serve Hashem and just learn Torah, they're the Mashiach ben David people, and they have to learn to get along. They have to learn to respect each other, and that the people that are building the infrastructure and building the security, right, have to know that the tachlis is for the Dawud Amashalacha, for the Beis Hamikdash, where Gamrin Ein Yeshiva Ba'azara El Machi Beis David Bovad. That's the tachlis. They sit there, and it has to be pointed to that nakuda, right? We should help. We should see that speedily in our days. As we see the Shleimus, as a friend of mine, likes to talk about Mizug HaKochos, a very close friend of mine. We should just hopefully see the Mizug HaKochos in the individual, Yosef David Burke, right? We shall see this also in Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael will give the world its cosmic bris milah, and there'll be the shleimus of, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, b'mheira b'yameinu, so that, as he kishei shechas abris, can chanas Torah chuppah mas and tovim, under the guidance of Mashiach Tzidkenu, b'mheira b'yameinu.